Hi guys, happy Saturday. It is time to talk the Real Housewives of New Jersey part 2. I'm giving you guys all the scoop on what went on behind the scenes that you didn't see, that wasn't brought to light, that wasn't brought to the franchise. You should definitely check out my part 1. I go into a deep dive on the issues and where all of this deep rooted hurt and pain and conflict comes from when it has to do with Joe Gorga and Joe Guidice. So go check out my last video. Before I get started, everything in this video, of course, is alleged. Also, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, put your alerts on. I'm always posting good content and tea, and I try not to get my opinion mixed in too much, but sometimes it comes out and I can't help it. But even if we don't share the same opinion or we're not rooting for the same housewife, it doesn't mean that we don't have the whole franchise in common and we can't conversate respectfully, guys. I don't want to go watch a channel that's all, fan Teresa, or all for Melissa. No, yeah, I have an opinion. I can't help it. Sometimes it comes out, but that doesn't mean that I'm not giving you guys the truth, or that I'm making anything up, because I'm not out here invested in trying to make somebody look bad. I'm just trying to give you guys the facts, okay? I'm just trying to bring some things that you maybe didn't think of or didn't know to you. And what you do with it, that's on you. So like I said, go ahead, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. We have to talk. We talked about Joe and their feud and where all of that, came from, allegedly, from this bad business dealing and Joe Gorga's parents losing their home and Joe Guidice taking them into him and Teresa's home and building them a loft. And we saw a little bit of that on the franchise. We didn't see all of it though. And it's kind of a shame on Bravo, because they really portrayed a different narrative to viewers about where all the conflict came from between Teresa and Joe. Maybe they knew, maybe they didn't. With the losing of the house, there was more to that story, and I mentioned that in part 1 that I said I wasn't going to talk about because they're like serious allegations and rumors out there, and that's all they are, because there was never any proof. So if you are interested in what that might be, then go to your Google search. You can definitely find it, but I'm not going to touch on that. So don't think that I don't know about it. I never heard about it, but I just don't want to touch on it because there's not any proof. So as far as we're concerned, the only thing we do have proof of is the deed of Joe Gorga's dad's house that had Joe Gorga's name on it, and that was signed by Frank Catania. So who was a lawyer. He signed as the witness, and he possibly could have been the notary because he was a lawyer. We do know, side note, that Frank is disbarred. He was disbarred several years ago, and he did not tell Dolores. He told her at the reunion. Fun fact. Not so fun. Anyways, so we know now that Joe Guidice and Joe Gorga, there's all this tension, right? But there's not any real tension with Teresa because she is just kind of in the middle, I think, at that point. But the feud between Melissa and Teresa takes off when Melissa and Joe join the Real Housewives of New Jersey. The lifelong question of what came first, the chicken or the egg, it's basically the same thing. Did Teresa know that, yes or no? Did Melissa tell her yes or no? Did they try to do this behind her back? Comment below and let me know what your opinions are. I'm just going to give you guys, allegedly, Kim D swears and says, she said this a long time ago in an interview, that Joe and Melissa started filming the christening. That was like their first official event that they were going to be filming at. And that production called Teresa at 10 o'clock at night to go over filming and letting them know that they were going to be filming the christening for her brother, that her brother and sister-in-law had signed for the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and they would be joining the cast. And Teresa had no idea. So Kim D alleges that she spoke with Teresa until 1 o'clock in the morning that night. She was upset, frustrated, and hurt that she didn't know that they had signed a contract. And it wasn't just Melissa and Joe, it was also Kathy and her husband. And Kathy and Teresa were very close. They were first cousins, but to Italians, that's like our brother and sister. Like, my first cousins are literally like my brother and sister. So Kathy was very close to them as well. So we do hear that. Okay, so that could or could not be true. I'm going to lean more towards that's probably true. Then the day of the christening, we know that Joe Guidice doesn't go to the church. He claims he has diarrhea. He stays home. They end up an hour late getting to the banquet hall, but they have 4 daughters. So I feel like you have to cut them a little bit of slack, because I feel like Teresa was really the ones taking care of the girls and doing her motherly role. And I don't know how much help she probably got from her husband, but I'm sure it wasn't a ton either. Even if she did, like, even if you split them up and they each took care of 2 kids, getting 2 kids dressed in fancy clothes, kept clean, into a banquet hall is not an easy task. Okay, so I'm going to cut a little bit of slack for that. Now, the christening is such a classic Real Housewives event that everyone has seen clips of, or they've watched the episode. But like I said, guys, I'm going to give you stuff that you've never seen on the episode, that Bravo's never talked about. There wasn't even the Bravo after show then, okay? I don't even know Watch What Happens Live was on yet. But I'm going to give you guys the details. So again, if I did not mention, Melissa and Joe were at like big round tables. Now at their table, they had their children and they had her family. Melissa has 2 older sisters and a mother. Teresa and Joe were not seated with her brother and their immediate family. I'm not sure who the parents were, but I'm going to assume I didn't see them sitting with Teresa. And I didn't see them sitting with Joe and Melissa. And since we got a really good shot of Joe and Melissa at the table, I don't think they were sitting with them. Anyways, we see like this fight break out and everything gets crazy. But what cameras didn't show you and what production didn't tell you was it was way more crazy behind the scenes. People were throwing their microphones. They said that people were screaming and yelling in English and Italian. And that there were people, of course, family members that were there, extended family, that didn't want to be filmed. And they were like yelling and hitting and throwing things at the cameramen. That's how crazy it was. Now, we didn't see any of that, right? Here's another thing. Sometimes we have to talk about people that have sadly passed away since. And I just want to let you guys know I'm going to try to be as respectful and kind as possible when talking about anyone that's deceased, because I want to bring up Joe Guidice's dad, who he has sadly passed away, and I want to bring up his mother, and I'm not sure if she's still alive or not, but they were good people, I would say, but crazy folks as well. An example I would give of that would be whenever Teresa and Joe were going to court for their federal charges, the paparazzi would follow them. Of course, they wanted to get photos, etc., etc. And one time, Joe's parents escorted them to court. And when they were coming home, for some reason, this paparazzi decided to follow them. And so Joe Guidice's dad got in the back seat and he pulled his pants down and he mooned the paparazzi through the back window. Now, Joe Guidice has a mother, right? And it was always alleged that there was the actual fight that happened that started everything was a fight between Joe Guidice's mother and Melissa's sister. I believe it. I do. I've heard that so many places. You have to think that Joe Guidice probably talked to his parents about everything that transpired with Teresa's family and taking on her parents. And maybe they had animosity and resentment too. Maybe Melissa's sisters talked bad about Teresa and Joe and it got back to them. Like, who really knows what the situation was? Because, they'd known each other for a pretty decent amount of time at that point. Like, I think that was Melissa, their 3rd kid or their 2nd kid. I think it was their 3rd. So I'm sure that they had known each other long enough to really, have enough conflict to get into a fist fight at a kid's christening. Okay? So we know that the mom and Melissa's sister are the people who actually supposedly caused this fight. Joe Guidice tells us that after filming wrapped, that producers and cameramen were literally high-fiving each other about how they had, TV gold. They were so excited because they had caught this on camera and it was going to make for such great reality TV. Yes. So when I tell you guys that production is in the midst of filming and they feed people information and lies even to try to get reactions and fights and all sorts of things, this would be an example of how much production is on site and really cares what's going on and how it's being filmed, that they were high-fiving each other just after they got done filming, like just after filming the episode, not like when it aired and they got all these views. Like, they filmed it, everyone's fighting, and then afterwards they're high-fiving each other. So it's just crazy that took place. I just can't even imagine being in an event and something like that happening, but it really put New Jersey on the map. And after that, Melissa and Joe were regulars on the show. They brought Kathy. They had all the drama between Jacqueline and Caroline because seasons before that, it had been between Dina and Caroline, the sisters, that, it was their family that was under the spotlight, and why they didn't get along. And then when Dina left the show, Jacqueline and Caroline got along for the most part because really they were sister-in-laws and not actually sisters. And so it was like Bravo moved the narrative of family over to Teresa and Joe. Like, let's concentrate on them a little bit. It seems like they got some messed up shit going on in here. And it gave them the best, Bravo, the best franchise, the best seasons they could have ever wished for. I mean, the season when the whole family goes to that castle, and that's where another fight breaks out, but it was just their family. It was supposed to be like a therapeutic, bonding weekend for their family to work through a lot of the issues that they had, and they ended up getting in a huge ass fist fight. So the dynamic between them is real. The animosity and the fighting, that is 100% real. I was so surprised when Teresa said that she didn't know she really had ever been in love with Joe Guidice. I think that him, they had a different sort of relationship, because I think Teresa, and she will even say that she, very much had the mindset of the same morals and the same roles in a relationship and in a family that it was like for her parents. And so she was submissive to Joe, and she let him take the lead. I remember when she came home from prison and Gia wanted to go out for New Year's, and he said she had to be home, and Teresa was just kind of caught in the middle because she wanted to give Gia a little bit of freedom and let her go out, because she had felt bad. She'd been in prison for a year, and Gia had really stepped up at home. But on the other hand, Joe, the man of the home, the father, had said no, she had to be home by 12. So what happened? Gia was home by 12. That's what happened. And that was how I think Teresa and Joe's relationship was a lot of the time. I don't think she had a really much of a voice. But I also think that Joe Guidice loved her and wanted to make her happy. He, when they did the interview when he came home from prison, he said that she always wanted to be on TV. But he said after they built that house and went on TV, he'd never been sued so many times in his life. And so Andy Cohen said, like, do you think without the show, would you guys have ended up in the same situation, like going to prison? And he said no. He said absolutely not. The show put a lot of attention on them. They built that huge mansion. There's so many deeds and cases that have both Gorga and Guidice listed as an LLC. It would be impossible to say that Joe Gorga and Joe Guidice were not doing business together, because they absolutely were. And Joe Guidice does say that. He says that he taught Joe Gorga how to flip houses. And the first house Joe Gorga flipped, Guidice helped him with. And that's not hard to believe, because like I said, all of these deeds, all of any sort of case, anything like that, it has been recorded that both of their names are on it. So to me, it says they were running a business together, both of them. So any bad business that Joe Gorga did or does, Joe Guidice was doing it too. And I think he probably was the one who showed Joe Gorga, like, this is how we do it. We don't do it by the book. We're going to do it like this. This is how you make money, and so on and so forth. And even though that didn't work out for Joe Guidice, I don't think Joe Gorga ever stopped. Like, he didn't realize, that's why we have these people coming forth. I gave you the name of a gentleman named Stefan from the first video, who claims that Joe and had their company come put an elevator in one of his locations and never paid them. And then there was a student by the last name of Scott. I don't want to give his first name. He was from this University of South Carolina. And he also said that he's owed money from Joe Gorga, who didn't pay him for the work that was done. And so there's a lot of people out there that have not been paid by Joe Gorga. And we saw the people that Joe Guidice tried not to pay. Unfortunately, the government caught up with him, and he ended up having to pay it, right? So I just think that they have a lot of the same type of business mentality, right? So everything that Joe Guidice was doing behind the scenes, he was doing, it wasn't the right thing to do. He got in trouble for it. He served his time, and I don't even think he messes with house flipping or anything like that anymore. Now, the thing is that Joe Gorga was also doing the same things as Joe Guidice, but he did not get caught. And so the light has never been on him and Melissa. They've always been able to be supporting actors and actresses to Teresa and her husband, and Teresa and her prison sentence, and Teresa and her husband's prison sentence, and then his deportation, and then now her new relationship with Louis, right? So it's like the spotlight's never been on Melissa and Joe so hard. And I think that when they first came on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, people did report things about them, but the internet wasn't like how it is today. And so, like, I didn't know that she had been arrested in Clearwater, Florida when she was 19. I didn't know she had an open arrest warrant. I didn't know that there was a woman alleging that she was in a lesbian affair with Melissa for like 18 months while they were in high school in Florida. And US Magazine put this was the cover of US Magazine, was Melissa's pictures from high school when she was a cheerleader, and a young female who claims that she had a lesbian affair with Melissa for like 18 months while she lived in Florida. And then, like I said, the shoplifting allegations that she was charged with. Melissa was charged with shoplifting from a high-end boutique in Florida. She never went to court. 9 months later, there was a bench warrant issued for her, and the National Enquirer found that out like 11 years after the fact. So, you know, people weren't taking Joe and Melissa, I think, 100% serious when they first came on the show. And I don't even think people were taking Joe and Teresa serious when they first came on the show. But when they got those charges and they got indicted, and they didn't have a lot of money, so they were selling their stories to the press. Like, every time that was a lot of conflict, because people were getting frustrated that they were selling their stories to the press for a paycheck, but that they wouldn't answer questions to their closest family and friends about their legal situations, which I can understand. They're on camera. Like, you don't want to talk about your legal stuff. But because they had to put food on the table, they had this huge mansion they were paying for, they were indicted, they had court attorney fees, talking prison sentences. Like, they had to do what they had to do. So they were selling stories and taking photos for OK Magazine and US Magazine, talking about what was going on. And people got frustrated. They would see that on the front of the magazine and know that Teresa and Joe had sold that story. They did it for the money, but then not answer any questions, which was their prerogative, I guess, if they were uncomfortable and they didn't want to talk about it with Bravo cameras. I mean, we were seeing it transpire anyways. Cameras were with them all the time. They literally filmed her going to prison, her coming home, him going to prison. Like, we saw it all. They couldn't have been more open with us, than especially when they were dealing with their legal cases. And again, Melissa and Joe were like, they were just supporting Teresa and Joe, right? It wasn't really all the way about them. Like, they were just very, very close to the situation, so they got a lot of clout and attention because of it, and they were like stepping in and helping. And at the same time, like, nothing that they were doing was being talked about. So that's why I think it's important to always get two sides of the story, do a deep dive, and let's talk about what we know, right? So let's go ahead and just review everything that we found out. We found out what the real conflict between the two Joes were, right? It didn't even have anything to do with Teresa. It just unfortunately had to do with her parents, okay? I included a clip, like I said, from a reunion. I think it was like the first reunion, maybe the second reunion, where Teresa and Joe are fighting, brother and sister. They're fighting about their family, and he's talking about his parents, and she's just trying to reassure him that his parents love him. And you can tell that there's a sort of insecurity with him there. And so I wanted to support that clip, so you guys could all see that and remember what Joe Gorga was kind of like, 10 years ago. I shared with you guys a lot of information on real estate. That one article came from the New York Post in 2006 or 7 that was regarding their plot of land that they bought and they built their mansion on. Melissa says in the Real Housewives of New Jersey that Joe gave her the plans for the home for Christmas, but then after they put the house on the market, take it back off, she does a Watch What Happens Live interview, and when she's asked about like their home going on the market and then off the market, she discloses that it was like a special house, like one of the houses that like somebody would build, and then they use that as like a tour house to sell that same, design and structure to other people. So she kind of caught herself in a lie, because she had told us in a confessional that he had given her, these for Christmas, but really that was not the case, if she wasn't lying when she was on Watch What Happens Live. We found out that Melissa was arrested when she was in Florida, when she lived down there when she was 19. Allegations of a girlfriend, and that whole thing. The woman alleges that they were together for like 18 months. The National Enquirer alleged that Melissa did not appear in court and that she actually had an open warrant up until 2011. And because she hadn't been in trouble, it had been 5 years since the incident, and also the boutique that she stole from had been bought out by Kaufman/Macy's. She was able to pay some court costs and a fine, and she took care of it. But the idea that she let it just sit there in Florida for 5 years is a little strange to me. And I think that's it, guys. What else did we find out? I remember all the bullet points right now. Let me double check though, because I want to make sure I hit everything. Oh, we found out about the Bentley too. Remember, they were driving the Bentley that was rented by the guy that was wanted by the FBI. And then we also found out, Melissa has the 2 older sisters, and that Joe Guidice's mom was the one allegedly who actually started the whole entire confrontation at the christening. So a lot of information. Let me know what you guys think. If I forgot anything, let me know. I do want to include one really quick thing because a commenter did mention this. They wanted me to make sure that I disclosed that when Kim D went on Behind the Velvet Rope, she was talking about some of Joe Gorga's buildings that he owns that have tenants. And I wanted to remind you guys of whenever they came on the show a long, long time ago, if you remember, I think Melissa had taken the kids to visit Joe at work or something, and they go for a walk, and they're walking down like the city street, and he's pointing out these 3 buildings and how he owns them and how they're in his 3 children's names because they're all, one for each child. That doesn't seem to be the case. There's no, homes in their name, but these buildings were actually made into apartment buildings. And Kim D alleges that during COVID, these apartments didn't have heat, and the tenants had nobody to call, nobody to reach out to for an extended amount of time. And that also the apartments have mice and rats, and they're infested, and some of them are just in a really, really bad condition, and there's no sort of apartment manager or anyone to contact regarding like the circumstances and the condition of where they were living during COVID. I don't know what it's like now. Kim D didn't say. She just gave us the gossip, the allegations that during COVID they didn't have building manager, they didn't have apartment manager, they didn't have anyone to contact about the mice, the rats, and the fact that they didn't have heat sometimes. So like I said, guys, make sure that you comment below. Let me know if I forgot anything. I really want to do a part 3 and kind of go through and bring us back up to speed. But for right now, I just wanted to hit the bullets, give you guys the stuff that you didn't hear behind the camera that was shocking and surprising. And like I said, do your own research, guys. I listed my sources in my first part in the description. If you're interested, there is a great Reddit thread about Teresa and Joe and Melissa and the other Joe and everything that transpired. Trust me, guys, you can find it. It's out there. But make sure you, like I said, make sure you hit the like button and follow, and I'll talk to you soon.